Were you aware recycling just 1 ton of paper can save over 17 trees? Yet every Sunday in the United States, over 90% of recyclable newspapers are wasted, also wasting about 500,000 trees. Recycling is something very easy to ignore in our busy day-to-day life. Establishing a recycling routine in your house, it's something that is easier than a lot of people expect it to be. Mandating recycling within the home and within our communities is a solution to help with that. Maybe forcing and getting people to actually start recycling within the home. So doing what we can to help our planet while we can is more important than ever. A lot of people already know this, and it's easy to say, but it is something really serious that we should think over and really think about our actions and how we're affecting our planet. After doing research on recycling over the past couple years, it is something that I've kind of been more passionate about, and I even kind of set up my own program within my home and got my parents and my sisters involved in recycling just to kind of do our part. So that's kind of my credibility and why I'm doing my speech on this. So our problem here really is there's not enough recycling. There's pollution, landfills. Obviously, we're not taking as good of care as our earth as we can, and that as we should be. The solution I see to this overall would just be getting elected officials to mandate recycling within the home, making it important and enforcing it, and actually enforcing people to do it. If everyone were to take part in this, it would make a huge difference. If we could make every household at least do something in the United States, it would make a huge difference. A way to do this would be easy ways, or just petitions and contacting your local representatives. It can make a really big impact on getting mandatory recycling ready and started. So now that I've kind of let you know what we're going over, we can talk more about the actual problem and not recycling enough. There is no encouragement or mandate to enforce recycling within the home right now. There are several cities that are trying it out, but overall in the United States, you don't see a lot of any kind of enforcement of recycling and encouraging people to recycle within the home. It's just voluntary at this point, which is that's our actual problem. You know, in theory, everyone agrees recycling is progressive and they want to do it and they think it's a good idea, but it's so easy to start ignoring when you're actually at home by yourself with your family. A statistic I found from Alex Truelove, a news source, he's a journalist, says 94% of Americans support recycling and even think it is important, but the national average rate is only about 34.7%. Not even 35% of us as Americans are doing our part in recycling, even though we know we should be. So without encouraging or enforcing recycling within the home, very little of us get to actually do our part in recycling and do what we can. That's why I really think without any sort of mandate or enforcement, it's only getting worse, especially in the United States, A couple slides I have, that was the quote from Alex Truelove that I mentioned. And then this is what I'm going to talk about next. Like I said, especially in the United States, it's the most wasteful country in the world. That's not just a quote. I actually looked further into that. A quote from Jeff Turnitine in 2019 wrote an article about just how we are really the leading country in not recycling and in waste and in producing waste. So obviously the United States needs to do something to help reduce this waste, and I really do think mandating recycling could be that solution. Making sure that we're at least getting people as involved as we can and making sure they're doing somewhat of their part. Although this seems like a problem that's impossible to fix, when you think of pollution and everything, it is really overwhelming. It's not as hard as it really seems it would be. Here's an idea on how to kind of get started with that plan. Since it is so overwhelming, we'll just kind of start with talking about how elected officials can really enforce and get mandated recycling in the homes. By doing this within the city and communities, it would encourage everyone to do their part, whether they really want to or not. It would really force people to really get their head in recycling and kind of grasp what we really need to be doing and what needs to be going on, because it is so important and it is something that should be required if we want to do anything to save our world, you know. This would, of course, mean the local governments and representatives providing those recycling services. That wouldn't really necessarily be on us as much. That's when it kind of comes back into petitions and talking to your local representatives about doing something, because they are the people that can really do something. If we were to mandate recycling, waste products would just decrease significantly, obviously. If everybody was doing that part in recycling, the waste product statistics and everything would go down so much, especially in the United States, if we could actually start implementing these programs and more recycling, easy things to do to recycle. That local government, you know, that really is our main, it's what we're going to be getting most of that help from. So they are the most important when it comes to those petitions and everything. A lot of this information I'm getting, there's a couple pictures just showing community recycling and how important that can be. And this is one of the biggest, one of my big sources is our Environmental Protection Agency. It's the U.S. government, their Environmental Protection Agency. And I got a lot of facts from their site just about how helping really can reduce that waste and everything, you know. So I know what some of you might be thinking. You can't force us to recycle, right? Everybody, you know, nobody wants to be forced to do something inside their home and recycling and everything. But instead, I would think about how much you're helping and what you're doing to support this progressive movement of recycling and actually doing something to save our planet, you know. Another objection some may have is how much does it cost? And cost comes into it, obviously, because when you're doing a lot more, it's going to cost a lot more. Although it may be some extra cost, from the cities and everything we've seen so far that you have tried out mandated recycling, they mostly rely, obviously, on their local government as well. So that's where that money is mostly coming from. That's what I would say. That cost isn't going to affect people individually as much if you think about it, because it's going to be coming directly from things like the EPA and the government and their influence and their financial costs to help, you know. So that wouldn't fall directly on us as much. So now that we've addressed a course of action, let's talk about just the benefits of recycling, you know, what we can do and how it's going to benefit us in the end if you do choose to start recycling more, or if we mandated recycling within the household. Obviously, cleaner streets and communities are a big one. It's going to make a huge difference on every part of the world, really, if we got everyone in every household to start mandating recycling. That would obviously make a huge difference, especially with think of how many households are in the United States and how much waste we are producing. So implementing something like that would make a huge change when it comes to doing our part to just save the earth and save our world. And, you know, we're going to be, our future family and everything is going to depend on it someday. So we should be doing what we can while we can. Not to mention, this conserves natural resources and things that we need while we're on Earth, and it saves energy, things like gas, oil, that kind of stuff that we don't need to be wasting while we're here. That's another, go back to our EPA. I got that couple facts on there about how we can conserve and save energy and everything by recycling and by just making sure we're making our resources count, you know. So what we can directly do to help, and what I would ask of people, is petitions, you know, writing letters to local authorities. I actually have a couple links here. You know, I was looking into petitions, and a lot of people, you really don't think at first that they really work, you know, but petitions do have a huge impact on getting things done, as well as writing to your local representatives. After addressing the problem and solution, I hope you all agree it's very possible that you could make a change by doing these things, you know. It doesn't have to be a huge change, but anything helps. So I've showed you the problem with our country and what it has going on with recycling. I've went over that solution to mandate our recycling, and showing hopefully that it could really work out for us in the end and it could benefit us. Once again, getting a hold of those local representatives, signing petitions, creating petitions is really going to help us in the end with getting recycling more important. It's not really central enough in our worries right now, and it should be. So I hope this has made you all want to help do your part and kind of get started with recycling if you don't already. Thank you so much.